Do you know what all the pets do in Warframe? Because I'm about to tell you, we're gonna go through all the robotic pets, so Sentinels, Hounds and Moas, and we're gonna check out their precepts. I think this is going to be pretty useful once the next update drops and we can actually choose the pet that best suits our situation rather than the one that doesn't die. So let's start off with Sentinels. There are 10 Sentinels in the game. Carrier, Deathcube, Derija, Jinn, Helios, Nautilus, Oxylus, Shade, Taxon and Worm. For Carrier, we have two unique precepts, Ammo Case and Looter. Ammo Case increases your ammo capacity whilst also giving you ammo mutation, and Looter causes the Carrier to emit a pulse that breaks nearby containers and resource nodes. This allows you to replace ammo mutation on your weapons with something else, and it also makes Carrier a really good farming sentinel. Next up is Deathcube, and Deathcube has Vaporize and Energy Generator. Vaporize is generally not worth running because it just does a little bit of extra damage, but Energy Generator is pretty good as it makes the Deathcube drop an energy orb after it assists you with 10 kills. So Deathcube basically just provides a little bit of assistance with energy generation. Next up is Derija, which comes with Arc Coil and Electro Pulse. Arc Coil can zap up to 7 enemies within 10 meters with a bit of electricity damage and a 10% status chance, and Electro Pulse will pick an enemy every 5 seconds and continually zap them, which is basically just a stun. So the Derija is mostly built for crowd control. Next up is the Jinn, which comes with Fatal Attraction and Reawaken. Fatal Attraction will pull in enemies from up to 20 meters away and then blast them with radio damage. Now this actually interacts with the Gazal Machete because whenever Fatal Attraction triggers, it will give your Gazal Machete extra corrosive damage, and kills with the Gazal Machete increase the damage of Fatal Attraction. And Reawaken is actually getting reworked with the next update, so instead of reviving the Sentinel after a short while, it will shorten the incapacitation period of the Sentinel once it goes down by 6 seconds for every energy orb you pick up, whilst also reviving the Jinn with 300 overshields for every energy orb you picked up. So this is basically like a high uptime melee Sentinel that synergizes well with the Gazal Machete. Next up is Helios, which comes with Investigator and Detect Vulnerability. Investigator scans enemies within 50 meters for the Codex using your own scanner charges, so if you don't have any, he's not gonna do it. And Detect Vulnerability kind of kicks in once the enemy has been fully scanned, and it can reveal weak points on the enemies that you can shoot or hit to deal more damage to them. So Helios is really good for filling in your Codex, but he also synergizes fairly well with precision weapons, which can take advantage of the weak points. Next on the menu we have Nautilus, and Nautilus is kind of special because he's a Railjack support sentinel, and he comes with Auto Omni and Cordon. Auto Omni repairs nearby hull damage and extinguishes fires on your Railjack with a 20-second cooldown, and Cordon will clump enemies within 30 meters of the target with a 15-second cooldown. This actually makes him a pretty good sentinel because grouping enemies up is always useful, but he is best used on your Railjack thanks to Auto Omni, which will just repair stuff on its own. Then we have another specialized sentinel, the Oxylus, and Oxylus comes with Scan Aquatic Lifeforms, Scan Matter and Botanist. Scan Aquatic Lifeforms is amazing for fishing because it reveals hotspots within 100 meters of you and marks them on the map, and it also mimics the effect of luminous dye within 40 meters of you. Scan Matter will mark resource containers that are within 60 meters of you on the map for 8 seconds every 30 seconds. And Botanist is a mod you have to get from Simaris. It doesn't come with it by default, but what it will do is scan plants that are within 50 meters of you using your own scanner charges. And just in case you don't know, this is how we pick up certain plants in Warframe. You basically have to scan them, which kind of picks them up. So the Oxylus is really good for fishing, but also gathering random stuff. Next up, we have the Shade. Now, Shade is the stealth sentinel, and because of that, its attack precept is a little bit unique. It only attacks enemies that have attacked you to not break stealth. On top of that, it also comes with Ghost and Ambush. Ambush is an extra mod that you can once again buy from Cephalon Simaris. Ghost will cloak your frame if there is an enemy within 24 meters, with it being disturbed once you start attacking, so it's kind of like Ivara's Prowl. And Ambush can give you 240% weapon damage for 3 seconds when the cloak is broken. So Shade is the sneaky sentinel. Next up is Taxon, which is the new player sentinel because you get a blueprint for it when you finish the Earth to Venus junction, and Taxon only comes with one specific precept, molecular conversion, which blasts an enemy within 10 meters, converting 200 damage into shields for your Warframe. This is actually not too bad now that we have shield gating. And finally we have Worm, which comes with crowd dispersion, and then you can buy Negate from Cephalon Simaris. Crowd dispersion unleashes a 10-meter radio knockdown, which, well, knocks enemies down and does a little bit of of damage, and Negate prevents a status effect from being applied to your Warframe every 5 seconds. So with Worm you get some nice crowd control and a bit of status resistance. And that's it for Sentinels. Now let's move on to Hounds. Now the thing with Hounds, and Moas as well, is that their precepts are interchangeable. So it doesn't matter what type of Hound you have. However, there are 3 types of precept mods for Hounds. There are Audit precepts, Denial precepts, and Prospectus precepts. And you can only equip one of each precept type on a Hound. So for Audit, we have Null, Repo, and Equilibrium. Null steals an Eximus ability for 60 seconds, while also stripping its overguard by 50%. Repo disarms enemies within 30 meters, and Equilibrium sends out shockwaves that do a little bit of damage, but also knock down enemies that are within 15 meters. Then for Denial, we have Evasive, Diversified, and Reflex. Evasive teleports the Hound away if it takes too much damage and gives it 75% chance to dodge enemy fire for 8 seconds. Denial will summon 3 Hound puppies that will fight for you for 30 seconds, each doing 85% of the Hound's damage. And Reflex generates a shield over the Hound that reflects 90% of the damage it takes in pulses over 10 seconds as magnetic damage in a 12-meter radius. And finally, we have 3 Prospectus mods, which are Synergized, Focused, and Aerial. Synergized fires a spark that will home onto the nearest enemy within 30 meters, dealing 300 electricity damage in a 10-meter radius, and then it bounces up to 7 times. Focus targets one enemy with a beam that does some heat damage over 4.5 seconds, and Aerial fires a beacon at an enemy that's within 27 meters that then calls down an orbital bombardment that does blast damage in a 7-meter radius. Okay, so that's it for Hounds. Now let's move on to Moas. And as I've said already, the precepts on Moas are interchangeable just like they are on Hounds. Now, while there aren't different types of precepts on Moas, they do have a different restriction. Moas can only equip 2 precepts at a time. So, there are 8 different Moa precepts, and we're gonna go through them 2 at a time just so the screen doesn't get too messy. Starting off, we have Blast Shield and Anti-Grav Grenade. Blast Shield gives the Moa 3000 extra overshields, and it makes it leap at nearby enemies that are within 10 meters, which does a bit of damage, knocks down enemies in a 5-meter radius, and it resets the overshields back to full. An Anti-Grav Grenade fires out a grenade that reverses gravity in a 3-meter radius, and it does a little bit of damage which is scaled based on the amount of damage the target took while airborne. Then we have Shockwave Actuators and Security Override. Shockwave Actuators will make the Moa send out a shockwave every 10 seconds that will knock enemies down, and Security Override makes the Moa auto-hack nearby things with a 30% chance to mind control basic robotic enemies and turrets within 30 meters for 14 seconds after hacking. Moving on from that, we have Tractor Beam and Stasis Field. Tractor Beam hooks onto your Warframe and gives you 100% aim glide duration while reducing the effect of gravity by 50%, and Stasis Field creates a field around the Moa where enemy projectiles move 90% slower and deal 60% less damage. And finally, we have Hard Engage and Whiplash Mine. Hard Engage makes the Moa melee attack enemies that are within 10 meters of it, with the damage of this being enhanced by the mods equipped on the Moa's weapon, and Whiplash Mine will throw out a mine, funnily enough, that will tether to all enemies within 20 meters of it, and then after 3 seconds all of them are pulled towards it. And that is it for all the robotic companion abilities. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful. I thank you very much for watching. I would like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your support. And if you would like to become a channel member as well, by the way, you can check out the memberships and stuff down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.